Hey there, you guys. So, with the recent release of Star Wars Jedi Survivor and controversy, backlash, whatever you want to call it, I kind of just wanted to take some time to talk about the performance issue of these games, specifically how a lot of these games are performing so poorly on PC, and for whatever reason, all these games that have been releasing seems to always randomly just work better on the PlayStation. And I feel like this is kind of a weird phenomenon that's happening because when you look at the PlayStation 5 in comparison to like the Xbox Series X or the strongest like PCs that you can find, the PlayStation isn't the strongest, most capable hardware when compared to the Xbox Series X or the strongest PC out there. So I just want to take some time to talk about this issue and why I feel like this is becoming more of a trend, and potentially it might be a bigger problem this generation than maybe even in past generations. Hey there, you guys. My name is Christian. If you like this type of videos, do me a favor and like the video and consider subscribing, as it does help me out tons. With that, let's get into this. Alright, first things first, let's get something out of the way. Let's talk about the video game at hand that kind of sparked this kind of conversation more recently, and that's Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, across all platforms, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is not a well-performing game. Ditto Foundry already did their deep analysis, pretty much stating that on all consoles, all platforms, it does not run well. And it's very noticeable when playing the game, everyone kind of sees it. I will admit that me playing the PlayStation 5, I didn't see it at first just because I felt like I was so intoxicated by the game. But as I played more and started looking back on some footage, yeah, I could definitely see a lot of the issues. I will say, however, though, from what I've gathered, it is a game that runs best on PlayStation 5 when compared to PCs and when compared to the Xbox Series. And I feel like this is becoming very much a common trend. Like, even when Ghostwire Tokyo, which is a Bethesda game, essentially a Microsoft game, released on Xbox last month, it ran considerably worse on Xbox hardware than it did on PlayStation hardware. This also happened with The Last of Us when it went to PC. Now, obviously, it's not all games. There's games out there that run fine on all systems. There's games out there that you don't really see have as much issues. But even with like the Resident Evil 4 remake when it came out, there was considerably a lot more issues with the Xbox version than it was with the PlayStation version. And this kind of got me wondering why. I mean, the Xbox touts itself as one of the strongest consoles ever designed. PCs have the strongest graphic cards possible and can run at insane frame rates and insane graphics. So why is the PlayStation the place that runs majority of games better? But when you see the reports that the PlayStation 5 has sold 38 million units already, outpacing even the PlayStation 4 at around the same time that it's been out in the market, and widely outpacing the Xbox Series X and S, it's kind of a no-brainer why games are running better on PlayStation. PlayStation has been the market leader for a good portion of last generation, and they're definitely showing why going into this next generation they're probably going to remain the market leader. And if you're a game developer and you're making a game, where do you want to put it where it runs best? You want to put it where there's going to be the most people playing it. You're going to want to put it where more eyes are going to get on. More people are going to buy that game day one on PlayStation 5 than an Xbox Series X. Well, then what about PC? A majority of the most die-hard, hardcore fans. I mean, there's people out there who spend $5,000 on their PC. And I feel like this is where it's the most bullshit, because PC gamers are downright the most dedicated and like loyal gamers, I believe, because they spend absurd amount of money to get the best performance, best graphics. Yet consistently they're given the short end of the stick. Consistently they're being neglected, and I feel like that kind of die-hard fandom, that kind of passion for gaming is why the developers aren't putting the best PC ports possible day one. And it's because they know somewhere down the line, if you spent that much money on your PC, you're gonna buy games. That's gonna be the easiest market to sell your game to. So you don't have to work as hard to sell it to them. Not to mention the fact that I feel like PC gamers are more used to and accustomed to getting patches for their games. And I feel like something that a lot of these game developers want and game publishers want are more, how do we market this game to a more casual audience? Because the diehards are going to buy this game. So how do we increase our sales amongst a fan base of people that don't typically buy games as often, the more casual gamers, the people who play on Xbox or PlayStation? And I'm sure they look at these numbers, they have analytics, research that shows that more casual gamers, more people who typically buy less games are more likely to probably purchase games when they're newer versus buying like 5-year-old games, 3-year-old games, even a year-old games, right? And then I feel like especially when you get a licensed game like Star Wars, it's going to be more likely that you're trying to get that casual audience invested in this game, right? You're trying to get that casual Star Wars fan invested in this game. So where's your casual Star Wars fan that doesn't really play video games play? Because if you play video games and you're a fan of Star Wars, chances are you're buying this game no matter where you have it. But if you're a fan of Star Wars and you just kind of like games and you're really looking forward to this game, chances are you're going to be on PlayStation or Xbox. And I feel like this is where PlayStation, being the market leader, has its huge advantages for Sony PlayStation. Because if you're developing a game and you have 3-4 years to develop this game, you're going to develop, the publisher's going to want you to develop it where they feel there's going to be the most sales of that game, which is most likely going to be PlayStation. And I feel like even though Xbox is a technically stronger console when it comes to just like the specs, PlayStation is the market leader. So you're going to so PlayStation is going to prioritize the development time, and then they're going to kind of adjust for the Xbox, right? And then they're going to adjust for the PC based off that PlayStation version of the game. And I feel like PlayStation really learned this during the PS3 era. Back when the PS3 was out and they had that cell processor that was really hard to develop games for, and the PlayStation was so expensive, no one really had the PlayStation 3 at the time, it made sense to develop your game on the easier to develop and the cheaper product, Xbox 360, even though you can't get more out of it, because technically at the time the PS3 was stronger than the 360, it was just not the market leader. So you got all your mainline games, all your third-party games being developed primarily with the Xbox 360 in mind, and then months later you'll get the PS3 version. And a lot of times, even though the PS3 was a stronger console, you got a worse version of it than you would technically get it on the Xbox 360, just because that was the market leader. Which kind of brings us to the next big issue with PC specifically, is that PCs have so many different levels of graphic cards, CPUs, whatever the hell. If you own a PC, chances are you own the same PC that somebody else has. You personalize that rig for you. So it's harder for a game developer to say, hey, this is how the PC port's going to run, when there's so many different targets they have to hit, right? They have to get this game running on the most average PCs, as well as the strongest PCs, as well as probably some of the more weaker PCs as well, because there's so many different like capabilities within PC that it's kind of hard to say where do we develop this game for. So I feel like this is where the PC start to get the kind of gets pushed back to the back burner of where they want to optimize the game for, right? So you optimize it primarily for the PlayStation because that's your focus, that's the market leader. Then you transition to the Xbox Series X and S because that's the easiest transition to go to. Then you focus on the PC side because there's so many different issues that are going to come up. There's so many different targets you're going to want to hit. And that's where I think the game development gets really tricky. And I feel like once these publishers start seeing the ballooning price tag, how expensive these games are going to be to make, and the amount of money they're going to be able to make off of it, right? Because there's only a finite amount of money you're going to be able to make off of one game. And the longer it takes to develop a game, the bigger the budget starts to become, the less money you're going to actually end up taking in from that game overall. So even if they have to release the game unfinished and finish it later on down the road, in their eyes, it's worth it because they're making money. And 1, 2, 3 years from now, gamers aren't going to be talking about how bad Jedi Survivor was on launch. They're going to be talking about how great the finished product is. And we saw it with Jedi Fallen Order because that game came out just the same way. Buggy, did not run well. And yet we still talk about it as though it's a great game. And believe me, I'm one of those people. I love the game. I played the game. I saw the issues. I still love the game. And it does suck because game publishers are taking advantage of that. They're taking advantage of the fact that us as gamers are passionate about games and we're going to buy these games. And we want the best product. Unfortunately, we have a tendency to forget issues. We have a tendency to forgive these companies, right? Because this is EA. This is an EA published game. And EA is notorious for taking advantage of their player base, their fan base, and we see it time and time again. We shouldn't be surprised that this game came out at the state that it came out in. But obviously we feel disrespected. We feel taken advantage of. We feel like we deserve more, as we should. Yet we're still not going to change the way we are, right? So how many people say, I can't recommend this game now, but after a couple patches, definitely pick it up. Like, we shouldn't allow them to have a couple patches chance. We will give them that, but we shouldn't allow these things to happen. Unfortunately, we do, we will, whatever you want to say it. Those are all my final thoughts. Huge mess of a ramble. My bad once again. I've been ranting on a lot. Anyways, let me know down below what you guys think. If you guys purchased Jedi Survivor, if you guys are noticing these issues. With that, I'll see you guys in the next video.